As we've noted, George Bush is in Australia as part of his 26,000-mile tour of Pacific nations. Many Americans may not know it, but we have a long and deep relationship with Australia. Dennis Grant is the national correspondent for Australian TV's Channel 7 in Canberra. This morning, he reports on the view from down under.
American traders have been visiting these shores since before we started calling ourselves Australians. We fought the same wars in the Pacific, in Asia, in the Mideast War, half a world away from us. The Australian Navy was the first ally to patrol the Gulf. Despite the closeness of the Australian-American alliance, or maybe because of it, there's concern here that the United States takes us too much for granted. Lyndon Johnson was the last president to visit Down Under, and that was 25 years ago. But Australians are loving this summertime spectacular of the American bandwagon. The security is a spectacle in itself, here in a country where bodyguards are almost unheard of. And the Bushes, well, they give every appearance of being right at home here.
I'm a little wet for her.
In Canberra, the Australian capital, modelled by an American designer on Washington, D.C., our farmers took time out from the harvest to blame George Bush for hard times. Wheat growers grumble they're being undercut in world markets by subsidised US wheat. Some of these farmers say the government should use US military bases in Australia as a bargaining chip for a fairer trade deal. The super-secret bases take advantage of Australia's geography to spy on Chinese and former Soviet nuclear missile tests. But Prime Minister Paul Keating has told George Bush the bases can stay. When George Bush first came to Australia, he was a wartime aviator, one of thousands of US servicemen fighting the Japanese. Katie, Australians are proud of that heritage, but they wonder how an old ally could accuse the Japanese of unfair trade tactics when the United States is doing the same thing to Australia.
Dennis, a couple of quick questions. With the end of the Cold War and the rise of Japan as a world economic power, are Australians worried that the United States might be losing some of its stature in the world?
Well, no, there's no sense of concern here in Australia about that. Our view is that the Americans won the Cold War and that the might of the American economy will, in effect, underwrite the economic recovery of Eastern Europe. So, no, there's no great fear on that score.
What's the biggest problem facing Australians right now?
Bad recession, Katie. 10.4% unemployment. Things are pretty crook here, as we say. But at the moment, the recovery is really contingent on what we can sell by way of what we grow and what we dig up in the way of minerals. And that's our concern with the Americans, because we believe they're being unfair about our traditional markets by subsidising their own grain exports.
And do you think that Australians will forgive the president for making that hand gesture?
Oh, of course we will. You know, it's the summertime here. Most of us are on holidays. We're at the beach. The country's virtually closed down. What are we doing? We're watching television and watching George and Barbara Bush. Just having a great time. Dennis
Grant, thank you. And as they say in your country, good day.
Hooroo.
We're back in a moment with more on Today, right after this.